Okay, good afternoon. I would like a pastor to volunteer to sit up here with me. I don't know who that would be. Like sit in the high chair next to me. I'm in a high chair. You want to search? Okay. There's a chair. Pull it over. Just because I feel like I'd like to speak on a subject that maybe we all know about, but it might be good if we took our time and built the message a little bit. So the 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 text is from 2 Samuel, where we have Jonathan and David in their relationship. So their hearts were knit together. Where are we? Did I say 2 Samuel? I mean 1 Samuel, don't I? 1 Samuel 18. Okay, so go ahead. Here, you can eat here if you want. I mean, people online will be watching you eat, so it's okay. Here, well, that's like not a bad thing, you know. Okay, so our flesh. So I just ask you at your table to talk about relationships in the flesh. Okay, so what is that anyway? Like relationships in the flesh. I don't know anything about it. I know nothing. Okay, so if you made a little list of human relationships and how they're characterized, and in a civil way, we're like polite, we're courteous, we give space, we instruct. There's different places where I have different kinds of relationships with people, like a teacher with children, a teacher with adults, adults with adults in an organization, employee, employer relationships, in general, family, cousins, aunts, uncles. And so, we kind of know what relationships are, but then if we put in there the worst part of us as people, you have words like control, manipulation, guilt, accusation, judging, those kind of words. So you have people living in life in relationships that might be destructive, that might be very critical, that might tear you down. So when we come to Christ and we're spirit filled, our relationships are different. So that's what I want to talk about today, like relationships. So we have two categories in the flesh. And what is the flesh? The flesh relationships, when they're kind of rooted in my flesh, what is my flesh, and then somebody else's flesh. And you can see how bad it can go. It can be morally good, but it could also be immoral. It could be kind of flattery and kind of get a charge about somebody loving you, respecting you, and so on. But then they can turn around and tear you down very easily. As well as putting you up, they can take you down, So the flesh. So take a few minutes at your table, and then we'll ask Pastor Sturges to make a comment after he eats half of a sandwich. So go ahead. We're building a little bit of a message. It's kind of not only for you, but for me too. Okay?
Wow.
Go ahead.
I love what you said about, I think it relates so much to what you said Sunday about the guarding, like Adam was told to guard the garden, to tend the garden.
Yes.
But what is it in relationships that turn them sour? Is it basically you're guarding your own self self-preservation in that relationship.
Oh, okay, self-interest.
You're afraid of losing it, so there's that control thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're guarding
I
it
could
with
lie.
anxiety, lying,
I could lie. Yeah,
right?
guard myself.
You know, that's loaded. That's good.
That's good. Maybe you can say that. Okay. You want to eat that
No,
after?
I can eat it after.
Maybe it'll work
I'm not
better
hungry.
for you.
I'm
Put it
good, yeah.
over there.
Put it over there.
Lorraine will want to know that you ate it.
Move it, just. So just thinking about what Pastor shared Sunday, Adam in the garden, and how when we try to guard something, it can turn into anxiety. Remember that? We try to protect something, it can go from guarding to anxiety. And I was thinking that in relationships, how easy it is with the control thing, right? With a husband and wife, with a boyfriend and a girlfriend. You're guarding it, but what's the motive for guarding that? It's for your own self-interest, right? And so you get anxious when things aren't going your way in the relationship, and you try to manipulate that person. You try to manipulate them. And like Pastor Schaller said, it could be through flattery. It could be through threats. It could be through the silent treatment or whatever. But anyway, that was my thought.
Okay, so 1 Samuel 18, verse 1. We have an interesting, David was speaking to Saul, and it came to pass when he had made an end of speaking unto Saul, that the soul of Jonathan was knit with the soul of David. So that means I'm present when David is talking to Saul, but I'm just listening to him talk to another person. He's not talking to me. He's talking to my Father. But as I listen to him, what was it that happened when he was listening to David? Like, what do you think? What? Yeah, he fell in love with him. He was attracted to his spirit, maybe his selflessness. He was attracted to maybe the presence of God in David's life, maybe the simplicity. It was just clean. You know, we were assuming that's what it was. But the heart was knit with David. It's kind of like us with each other, like you're talking about Jesus, and we're listening to you, and we are somehow like drawn and realize that there's no games or tricks. There's not judging, accusations. There's not flattery or empty or foolishness. It's not about David. It seems like it's more about love. It's more about freedom, and it's about love. And maybe Jonathan said, "Yeah, I like this guy. I like to hang out with him. There's a freedom in him, or there's something about what he's saying that, you know, I'm drawn to." So let's use that as a model for us, that we want those kind of relationships, and we know about the other kind. You know, we know about how a family fight. You know, we just had my grandson's graduation, and we had a get together at Justin's house, and a lot of people, and we did it all together as a family. Thank God, like we didn't have any bloodshed or anything like that. Thank God. No, we had it worked. We all pitched in, we got things done and stuff. But I can see that without the church and without training and without understanding some of these things, how petty we can be. You know, how a simple thing becomes a big thing. how complicated things can be, when we try to organize something in church life or mission work or any number of things. So I would like to say healthy, and you can comment on this, Pastor, healthy relationships really need liberty. There has to be liberty in relationships with each other, like giving each other room. Like love gives you space. I like that. Like love isn't on your case, Love isn't petty. Love gives us room. So liberty. The Spirit, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. So could I make a mistake in your presence? Yes. Are you going to be all over me on it? No, not like that. But you could talk to me. Like you're not going to accuse me. You're going to love me and help me. Like there's going to be liberty. Like I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to be afraid to talk or afraid to be who I am or afraid to be expressing myself, in the way that's, Okay, you want to say something, Pastor?
Yeah, I was trying to imagine what David was saying to Saul that attracted Jonathan to him. And I just think that David wasn't about himself. I think that was what was very attractive. He was probably taking an interest in maybe asking questions to King Saul. And humble. He was very humble guy, just a shepherd boy, just asking. And Jonathan's looking at him and listening to maybe the questions he's asking the king and his humility. And I think that when you have that in a relationship with somebody, it's just beautiful because, like Pastor said, there's no strings attached at all. There's no strings attached. And it's like I determined to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and Him crucified. And that's what a beautiful way to have a relationship with another person in the body.
Okay, so so we have the flesh, and just do you want at your table like 3 things about the flesh, 3 things the flesh can't do, or 3 things that the flesh does do? 3 things about the flesh in relationship with people, okay? Like the flesh is very petty, can be judgmental, can talk a lot, not know what they're talking about, be divisive, separate into groups, be critical. I guess that's 3, 5, 7 things, okay? So then let's talk about the things that the Spirit does. When you're Spirit-filled, what does the Spirit do in your relationship? I mentioned one, which was liberty. What are a couple more at your table? Go ahead. Gives grace.
Grace.
God conscious. Not intense. Not correcting everything. But then there is the place where things need to be repeated or corrected or instructed or counseled. But there are gifts of the Spirit in the body that help us in that. There's some people that are very good communicators.
Yeah.
Some are not.
Yeah. Yeah. I think too, being a good listener
Okay.
is big, right?
That's big.
Just being a good listener.
Patient. Being kind.
Yeah. Yeah. Bonhoeffer did a whole thing on that, about listening. It's very good.
I think I'll bring up something. Okay. Turn to 1 Samuel 20. Now, one of the things in our talk today is what happens when there is a problem between people. Like, how do we handle it when there is a problem And with Jonathan and David, what was the problem that was in a way like between them? What was the problem? You had Jonathan and David, they were knit together. They had oneness, they had fellowship. But what was the pending problem? What was the elephant in the room? Okay. Saul. Okay. What about him? He hated David, right? And he tried to kill David. So now we have a problem. We can put it under the rug. Like, let's pretend it's not there. Like, David, you and I have a good fellowship. We're moving on. Everything's good. And like Jonathan says, no, not everything is good. Jonathan said, no, my dad is going to kill you. And David is saying, oh, no, no, no. I don't believe that. Remember that? That's the spirit of these chapters, 19, 20, 21. Like David's not believing because, you could say, worst case, David is naive. Better way of saying it is that David is spirit-filled. When you're spirit-filled, in a way, you are naive. You don't believe bad things about people when you're spirit-filled, because love doesn't think evil. But I might need my brother to wake me up and say, no, Pastor Schaller, we do have a problem. There is something here. And now comes in something very important, and it is that the Spirit would help us understand how to handle a problem, that the Spirit would help us handle it with wisdom and also communication. And I think that's one of the things that we lack, like when we get into our problems with each other. Like I do need somebody that has an ability to communicate, and not everybody has that. Let's stop there for a second. Let's repeat it at our table. Listen to me. Turn to your neighbor and just say, listen to me. Not everybody is a good communicator like you are. Go ahead. Not everybody is a good communicator. Go ahead. Go ahead. Talk about it for a minute. Let me. Is everybody in the body of Christ a good communicator? Is everybody able to talk about something or a problem and do a good job at it? And the answer is no. Not everybody is. Okay, so go ahead and enjoy that talk at your table. Use scriptures if you can. It's important because this is a Bible church. So quote chapter and verse. Turning over to so what do you think?
James 3:17.
What's it say?
Wisdom from above.
Okay.
Right.
There you go.
Pure. It's pure. It's not murky. It's pure.
Okay.
Peaceful. It's gentle, easy to be entreated. It's without hypocrisy. Right? There's no hypocrisy. There's no partiality in the council.
You got to share that.
Yeah.
Sir, you got to share that.
So good.
This rap's going nowhere. They just heard that. That's good.
Yeah.
No, I think we can mess things up. We can mess things up. Peter, Galatians 2. There are times there can be disagreements. Paul didn't want Barnabas to go with, didn't want John Mark to go with him. Barnabas did. I don't know. There's times with the disciples, Jesus would say, you don't know what spirit you are of.
Yeah.
There are times when it's obvious that we're not good at ministry. with words. Words are big, James 3.
Yes.
Words
there
are
you go.
big, so
Yeah.
it's like they can set on
Wow.
a fire.
Wow.
Words are big. Let me say that part.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
say it.
Yeah.
Okay, where do we have verses? James 3, the tongue is an evil member. Who said that to who? James said it to the church, right? And anybody here ever get in trouble with your tongue? Huh? But yeah, we said wrong thing, wrong way, wrong person, wrong time. Yes, so that happens. So we're talking about relationships, and we want to keep them the best we can. And we would like to learn how to communicate, how to navigate. Now, there are times, remember Barnabas wanted John Mark to go with Paul on the mission field, and Paul said, no, I don't want him to go. Remember that? So there was a disagreement. So Jesus said to the disciples, when they wanted to call fire down, he said, you don't know what spirit you are of. So we can be that way with each other. And I think that we just have to be aware of the fact that my tongue, I can do a lot of damage with it. And maybe say things, even I could be right, but maybe the way I'm saying it, or the when I say it, and who I say it to, and so on. We're really good at knowing all of this, you know. So, Pastor Sturge.
Yeah, James 3:17, wisdom from above. It's what? First, pure. It's unsullied. It's not murky. And so when I'm communicating, it's not confusing, but it's pure. It's clear. It's pure. It's peaceful. It's gentle. It's full of mercy and good fruits, but it's without partiality. So I'm not being impartial when I communicate. And it's also without hypocrisy. I'm not being hypocritical in my communication, even though I might have to correct somebody. But it's done right in mercy. It's done in peacefulness. But it's wisdom from above. And it works, right? It works.
So let's see. Turn to 1 Samuel 20. We'll finish up here. Verse 16, I like this. Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David. Now, does anybody remember what that covenant was? Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David. What was the covenant? Wasn't it that Jonathan's sons or his offspring would somehow be preserved? That David would take care of his family? Because it looks like Jonathan understood where things were going, and that he didn't have the confidence that his dad would live, that Jonathan would be the next king, that Jonathan somehow understood. So he wanted David, when you become king, then remember my family, remember Mephibosheth. And then it says here, this is interesting in verse 17, and Jonathan caused David to swear again. Like he wanted to hear David say it again. Like I like that in our relationships with each other, that I want to hear again what it is that God is saying to us. I mean, I like to think that we have an everlasting, we have relationships that will go on and on and on. And I want to hear that again. Because we do have rough patches. We do have difficulties between each other sometimes. But we learn love, we learn forgiveness, and that there's something bigger than our flesh. Like our flesh tries to control relationships. In the spirit, we learn to enjoy our relationships, even when there are differences. In our flesh, we are kind of eagerly like lusting for relationship. But in the spirit, we aren't. We're free. I have a relationship with you, or maybe I don't have, but I love you. I haven't seen you for a year, like convention is coming. I haven't seen people for a year, but I love them, but I don't have to have a relationship that's built around my ego. We have relationships that are built around God and love. And you're doing a good job, and I don't see you. I don't know you that well. I had one. I can finish with this. I had one strange thing happen to me at Eurocon. There was a brother that said, "I don't believe in Jesus anymore." Yeah, I don't believe in this teaching. I don't believe in Jesus. I don't believe in God. So this is what he said to me. I haven't seen him for years, but he came to talk to me. And he said, and so we walked together to the restaurant one afternoon, and we just talked, and he said, "Yeah, I don't believe in Jesus. I don't believe." And by the way, when I was here with you, I didn't feel that you really got to know me, because we're to know no man after the flesh. So I don't feel that you really got to know me, and I didn't really get to know you. Okay. So then I said, "Well, then why are you here now, like talking to me? Because I miss you." Like, which part of me do you miss? Like, what are you missing? Like you. Like, then you did know me, or you didn't know me. Like, if you didn't know me, I don't think you would be here. But because you care about me and you know me, and I know you, but now I'm not sure who you are. Yeah. So isn't it interesting? If you can follow that? The flesh is the flesh and can't find satisfaction in the flesh and is searching. And this man said, "I don't know who I am, and I'm searching, but I miss being with Christian people." Why do you miss being with Christian people? Because they are nice, and they are kind of simple, and they are loving, and I miss that. Why do you miss that? Because that made an effect on you, and you were one of them. You were one of them, and you walked with us for decades. But now you have this conversion in the opposite direction, and now you're looking for what you're missing. And have you found it? No, I haven't found it. You could almost weep with a person like that, because they're so lost and confused. And there's no joy in that in our hearts. But it does that's a mirror image of what we are talking about, which is when we have found Jesus and walk in faith, we find relationships that are satisfying, but they're not rooted in my ego. If your relationships are rooted in your ego, then it's about how your relationships will satisfy your flesh. And they won't ultimately. But you can feed on the flattery, or feed on the attention, or feed on, whatever it is that our flesh feeds on. Or you can go to God, the cross, trust Him with all your heart. The Spirit fill you, like Jonathan and David. And then Jonathan just says to David, "Swear to me again. I want to hear it again." And that's where we find our satisfaction in the Lord, like hearing what it is that God has to say about us. I want to hear it again. That will feed me in my heart and help me in my faith. Okay, amen. You're dismissed. Thanks, Pastor Serge.